Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. Vice President JD Vance, who seemed to disappear for the first 48 hours of the Iran strikes, just emerged on Fox News and added to the questions and controversy over him. Vance addressed concerns that the Iran war will turn into another endless Middle East conflict that drags on for decades.
Well, Jesse, if you think back to Afghanistan, 20 years of mission creep, 20 years of not having a clear objective, and 20 years of the United States trying to bring liberal democracy to Afghanistan. Iraq was a little bit shorter, but we were still in that country for nearly a decade with no clear mission, no clear definition. What's so different about this, Jesse, is that the president has clearly defined what he wants to accomplish. And there's just no way, I said this before the conflict started, I'll repeat it again, there's just no way that Donald Trump is going to allow this country to get into a multi-year conflict with no clear end in sight and no clear objective.
The Trump administration is not going to allow a multi-year conflict with no clear objective. Except that right now, even Republicans say there is no clear objective. Trump and his team have spoken about regime change, so the Iranian people can install modern secular leaders who respect human rights. Trump and his allies have also talked about stopping Iran from being a terror state that spreads violence around the world. Trump has also said Iran needs to end its missile capabilities. And then, of course, there have been the Trump warnings about Iran's nuclear ambitions, with conflicting accounts by the Trump team about how close Iran has been to producing a nuclear bomb. In other words, the objectives have been all over the map and anything but focused and clear, except in the mind of JD Vance.
What is different about President Trump, and it's frankly different about both Republicans and Democrats of the past, is that he's not going to let his country go to war unless there's a clearly defined objective. He's defined that objective as Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and has to commit long-term to never trying to rebuild their nuclear capability.
Okay, put JD Vance down for being concerned about Iran having nuclear weapons. But even going to war with Iran over that has been questioned recently by JD Vance. Just days before Donald Trump ordered the strikes on Iran, the American Spectator reported that Vance was a leading opponent of attacking Iran. Adam Mockler on YouTube picks up the reporting.
But Vance's latest public comments on Iran appear to have been an interview with the Washington Post, published on Thursday, in which he said there was, quote, no chance America was about to embroil itself in another long war in the Middle East. Quote, I think we all prefer the diplomatic option, he said, calling himself a skeptic of foreign interventions. But it really depends on what the Iranians do or say. So JD Vance has been pretty firmly against intervention.
And Vance's opposition to a military intervention in Iran may explain why Vance seemed to be sidelined over the weekend. While Donald Trump, Secretary of State Rubio, and Defense Secretary Hegseth monitored the initial Iran attacks from a secure room at Trump's estate in Mar-a-Lago, Vance remained in Washington. The Vice President joined Treasury Secretary Bessent and Director of National Intelligence Gabbard in the White House Situation Room, and photos of the group generated widespread ridicule. Again, here's Adam Mockler.
This is like the B table. This is like the kids' room. This is where they put all of the anti-war people who might object to anything they do, who might not be okay with the most extreme version of interventionism. I mean, it's important to point out, Tulsi Gabbard in about 2020 was running ads against Trump and saying that he wanted to strike Iran, saying that he wanted to get us into another war. She is quite literally probably the most anti-war one here, to be honest. Tulsi Gabbard is just so blindly anti-war that she doesn't even want to help Ukraine, doesn't want to help Taiwan, doesn't want to help allies who are getting invaded, which at that point is just pro-war. So she's very misguided. She's honestly not very smart on foreign policy, and JD Vance isn't either. So they created a kids' room. Someone said, lol, is that the kids' table?
Vance's demotion to the kids' table amidst one of the highest risk decisions of Donald Trump's second term has major political implications. It suggests that Trump doesn't want Vance's skepticism around, at least on Iran. And perhaps Vance has fallen out of favor with Trump and has lost influence. The other political implication for JD Vance is more long-term. If the mission in Iran is successful and the war ushers in regime change and a new modern Western-oriented leadership, Vance will not be able to take any credit given the clear record that he opposed the war. But if the war becomes a disaster, changes nothing in the Middle East, and drags on with U.S. casualties, Vance will be a dead duck politically for many conservatives who believe in isolationism and America first. And being associated with interventionism, especially failed military interventionism, could sink Vance's chances at winning over MAGA and securing the Republican presidential nomination in 2028. Vance is already getting pounded hard by the left for repeatedly putting power over principles.
But Vance, for whatever reason, scares me
Why?
almost more than Trump. I don't know. I just, I mean, talk about a guy who put a mask on and his face grew into it. I mean, JD Vance and Marco Rubio were two of the most effective critics, just like that guy, what's his name, Graham, Lindsay, of Donald Trump. What frauds, what phonies. But JD is a unique fraud and phony, and he's a little more dangerous. And the folks around him, these are not folks that believe. I mean, listen to some of its biggest funders, the way they talk. There's a nihilism.
That's a reference to JD Vance funder Peter Thiel. Thiel, the billionaire who started PayPal, is a prominent proponent of life extension and transhumanism. He views death not as an inevitability, but as a bug or problem to be solved through science and technology. Thiel once famously stated he is against the concept of mortality. Thiel's strange philosophies have huge implications for public policy, the use of science, and the organization of society. And JD Vance's close association with Peter Thiel has long left people on the left and right deeply concerned about Vance's power. Does JD Vance have any core principles other than protecting himself and accumulating power? Well, the Iran war is not going to help Vance politically. Will it eliminate Vance as a contender in 2028? That may depend on how the war goes. Given Vance's long-held skepticism about foreign military intervention, even Vance must know his political future is now precarious. Did you know that the big wireless carriers like Verizon and AT&T made over $18 billion in profit last year? How? By overcharging you for unlimited data, most of which you probably aren't even using. But what if you could get paid to use your phone less and only pay for the data you do use? Well, with Noble Mobile, you can. For just $50 a month on their No Bull plan, you get unlimited data, and whatever data you don't use, you get cash back right in your pocket. People who switch to Noble can save an average of $500 to $1,000 a year. It's a no-brainer. And by switching to Noble, you're directly supporting TYT and our mission of bringing you honest, independent news. So give Noble a try and make the switch today. Scan the QR code on the screen now or visit go.tyt.com/plan. That's go.tyt.com/plan. By the way, Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz recently shredded a key Trump and Vance argument for the war.
I have no indication that they were anywhere close to getting nuclear weapons because our bombing was devastating.
By bombing, Cruz is referring to the strikes the United States launched against Iran in June of 2025, targeting several Iranian nuclear facilities.
I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
But a few weeks ago, the Trump administration began to insist that despite the attacks on Iran in June, the regime was close again to having nuclear weapons.
They're probably a week away from having industrial grade bomb-making material.
Trump allies in Congress, including Nancy Mace, Republican from South Carolina, added this.
What most of America does not know are the classified briefings many of us have had on the House Armed Services Committee and Intel Committee. And you don't realize just how close Iran was to getting a nuclear weapon.
Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.